Pack your things, he said coldly. I looked up from scrubbing his kitchen floor and replied, Actually, you should pack yours. His wife, standing in the doorway, froze. Why would my husband need to pack his things? She asked, her voice shaking. And what I told her in the next 60 seconds ended their marriage, exposed his crimes, and changed my life forever. My name is Elena, and for 3 years, I was invisible in their home. But on that day, I became the only person telling the truth. This is my story. Before I take you back to the beginning and show you exactly how everything unfolded, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Comment your country below. I love hearing from all of you around the world. And if you believe people should stand up for what's right, no matter the cost, please subscribe to this channel. It truly means everything to me. Now, let me tell you how a simple housekeeping job turned into the most intense 3 years of my life. 3 years ago, I stood outside the iron gates of 742 Riverside Estate, clutching my small suitcase and a reference letter that had taken me months to earn. The mansion before me looked like something out of a magazine. White stone walls, perfectly trimmed hedges, and windows so large and clean they reflected the afternoon sun like mirrors. I was 26 years old, fresh from my small hometown, and desperate for a job that would help me send money back to my sick mother. When the agency told me the Morgan family was looking for a live-in housekeeper, I thought I'd won the lottery. I had no idea I was walking into a beautiful lie. Mrs. Victoria Morgan answered the door herself that first day, which surprised me. She was elegant in a way I'd only seen in movies. Late 30s, blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon, wearing cream-colored slacks and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. But what struck me most was her smile. It was genuine, warm, the kind that reached her eyes. "You must be Elena," she said, extending her hand. "Please, come in. We're so happy you're here." The interior of the house took my breath away. Marble floors stretched endlessly. A crystal chandelier hung in the foyer like frozen starlight, and a grand staircase curved upward to the second floor. Everything gleamed. Everything was perfect. "I know it's a lot to take in," Victoria said, noticing my expression. "Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Let me show you to your room first, then we'll go over everything." My quarters were in the West Wing, a small but comfortable bedroom with an attached bathroom, far nicer than anywhere I'd lived before. Victoria spent the next hour walking me through the house, explaining the daily routine with patience and kindness. She never once spoke down to me, never made me feel like just the help. That was Victoria's way. She treated everyone with respect. Mr. Richard Morgan came home that evening while I was preparing dinner under Victoria's guidance. I heard him before I saw him. The heavy front door, the jingle of keys tossed on the entry table, footsteps across the marble. "Victoria, I'm home." He strode into the kitchen, and I understood immediately why Victoria had fallen for him. Richard Morgan was handsome in that polished corporate way. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He had the kind of confidence that filled a room. "Darling," Victoria said, going to kiss his cheek, "this is Elena, our new housekeeper. Elena, my husband, Richard." "Welcome to the family, Elena," he said, flashing a smile full of perfect white teeth. His handshake was firm, professional. "We're glad to have you. Victoria's been running herself ragged trying to manage everything alone." That first impression was all charm, all warmth, all lies. My routine settled quickly. I woke up at 6 every morning, prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, did laundry, grocery shopping, and cooked dinner. The Morgans had no children. Victoria had mentioned once, quietly, that they'd tried for years. So the house was usually quiet during the day. Richard left for his investment firm by 7:30. Victoria often had charity board meetings, yoga classes, or lunch with friends. By 8 most mornings, I was alone with my thoughts and my work. I took pride in what I did. Every surface gleamed. Every meal was prepared with care. The Morgans never complained, and Victoria often praised my work, sometimes leaving little thank you notes on the kitchen counter. Elena, the house looks beautiful. Thank you for everything you do. V. Those notes made me feel valued, seen. For the first 6 months, life at the Morgan household felt almost perfect. I was saving money, my mother's medical bills were getting paid, and I felt fortunate to work for people who treated me well. Victoria and I even developed a friendship of sorts. She'd sometimes join me in the kitchen while I cooked, talking about her day, asking about my family. She showed me photos from her wedding, from trips to Paris and Rome, from the life she'd built with Richard. "We've been married 12 years, she told me once, a soft smile on her face. He was my college sweetheart. I knew from our first date that he was the one." I remember thinking how lucky she was, how lucky they both were. The first crack in the illusion appeared on a rainy Tuesday morning, about 8 months into my employment. Richard had left for work as usual, but 20 minutes later, he rushed back through the front door. I was vacuuming the living room and turned off the machine when I heard him. "Forgot my phone," he muttered, barely glancing at me as he hurried upstairs. I went back to vacuuming, thinking nothing of it. But then I noticed something on the couch, a black iPhone, partially tucked between the cushions. I picked it up, assuming it was the phone he'd forgotten, and was about to call up to him when I noticed something strange. Richard always carried a silver iPhone in a leather case. I'd seen it 100 times. This phone was different. No case, a generic black model, and when the screen lit up in my hand, there was no lock screen photo of Victoria like his regular phone had. Instead, the screen showed 3 unread messages from a contact labeled only A. My thumb hovered over the screen. I knew I shouldn't look. It wasn't my business, but something in my gut twisted with an uncomfortable feeling, an instinct that something was wrong. The preview of the latest message was visible without unlocking the phone. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again? A." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Elena!" Richard's voice from upstairs made me jump. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. "Yes, Mr. Morgan? Have you seen my phone down there?" I looked at the black phone in my hand, then at the stairs. My mouth dried. "No, sir, I haven't seen it," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I heard him moving around upstairs, opening drawers, cursing softly. My hands were shaking as I quickly slid the black phone back between the couch cushions, exactly where I found it. 30 seconds later, Richard came downstairs with his silver iPhone in hand. "Found it in the bathroom," he said, already distracted, checking messages. He rushed out the door without another word. I stood in the living room, the vacuum still humming beside me, staring at the couch where that secret phone lay hidden. And I realized that the perfect life I'd been cleaning and cooking for was built on lies. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages on the black phone screen. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." The words played on a loop in my mind, and with them came 1,000 questions I didn't want to answer. Should I tell Victoria? Should I pretend I'd seen nothing? What if I was wrong? What if there was some innocent explanation? But deep down, I knew. Women always know. The next morning, I went through my routine on autopilot, preparing breakfast, setting the table, trying to act normal. When Richard came downstairs, I couldn't meet his eyes. He seemed distracted anyway, checking his silver phone constantly, barely touching the omelet I'd made. Victoria was her usual cheerful self, talking about a charity gala she was planning for the children's hospital. She was so animated, so full of life, gesturing with her coffee cup as she described the venue, the guest list, the auction items they'd secured. Richard nodded along, inserting comments at the right moments, playing the role of devoted husband perfectly. I wanted to scream. After they both left, Richard to his office, Victoria to meet with the event planner, I stood in the empty kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I walked to the living room. The black phone was still there, tucked between the cushions. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. The screen was locked now, but it lit up when I touched it, showing the time and several notification banners. More messages from A. I couldn't read them without the passcode, but I could see the previews. Missing you already. 3 more days until we can be alone again. Did you tell her yet? That last one made my blood run cold. Did you tell her yet? Tell her what? That he was leaving? That he wanted a divorce? I heard a car door slam outside and nearly dropped the phone in panic. Quickly, I shoved it back into the couch and rushed to the window. It was just a delivery truck next door. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heart hammering against my ribs. This was dangerous territory. I was the housekeeper, not a detective. This wasn't my marriage, wasn't my business. But every time I looked at Victoria, saw her smile, heard her talk about Richard with such love and trust, I felt sick. Over the next 2 weeks, I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. Richard's late nights at the office happened at least 3 times a week. He'd call Victoria around 6, his voice smooth and apologetic. "Sorry, darling, the Tokyo markets are crazy right now. I'll be home by 10. Victoria would sigh, tell him not to work too hard, and eat dinner alone. Sometimes she'd ask me to join her, and we'd sit at that enormous dining table, just the two of us, talking about everything and nothing. "Do you have someone special back home, Elena?" "No, ma'am, no time for that. I've been focused on helping my mother." "That's admirable," she said softly. "But don't forget to live your own life, too. Love is worth making time for. Richard and I," she smiled that dreamy smile, "we still have date nights every Friday, even after 12 years. It's important to keep the romance alive." I nodded, pushing food around my plate, knowing that Richard's Friday date nights had ended early the last 3 weeks in a row, with him claiming exhaustion and going to bed, while Victoria stayed up, disappointed but understanding. The black phone became my obsession. I checked it every few days when I was alone, careful not to move it too much, just looking at the message previews. The contact A messaged daily, sometimes multiple times. The previews were like puzzle pieces of an affair I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. "The hotel room is booked for Thursday. I'm wearing the lingerie you bought me." She suspects nothing, right? That last message appeared on a Wednesday morning, and I felt rage bubble up inside me. She suspects nothing. Of course Victoria suspected nothing. She was too kind, too trusting, too in love with a man who didn't deserve her. Then came the day Richard realized I might know something. I was cleaning his home office, a room I usually avoided because it felt too personal, but Victoria had asked me to dust and vacuum before some business associates came over. I was careful with everything, wiping down his mahogany desk, organizing papers that had gotten scattered, emptying his wastebasket. That's when I found it. Crumpled at the bottom of the trash, a receipt from Cartier, the luxury jewelry store downtown, dated 3 days ago. 1 diamond pendant necklace, $12,000. My heart raced. Victoria's birthday wasn't for 4 months. Their anniversary had passed 2 months ago. I would know. I'd helped Richard arrange the roses he'd sent her. This necklace wasn't for Victoria. I heard footsteps behind me and spun around. Richard stood in the doorway, his jacket off, tie loosened. His eyes went immediately to the receipt in my hand. "Mr. Morgan, I'm sorry, I was just cleaning." "I see that." His voice was calm, but something in his eyes had changed. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "Elena, how long have you worked for us now?" "Almost 9 months, sir." "And we've been good to you, haven't we? Victoria especially. She thinks very highly of you." "Yes, sir. I'm grateful for everything." "Good." He walked closer, taking the receipt from my hand gently, almost casually. "Then I'm sure you understand that every family has private matters, things that are none of anyone's else's concern. You understand that, don't you?" There was no threat in his voice, but I felt threatened anyway. The air in the room had changed, become heavier.
Of course, Mr. Morgan. Victoria is sensitive, he continued, crumpling the receipt and pocketing it. She's been stressed with this gala planning. The last thing she needs is confusion, misunderstandings about things that don't concern her. Or you. I swallowed hard. I would never upset Mrs. Morgan. I know you wouldn't. He smiled then, that same charming smile from the day we'd met, but now it looked like a mask. You're a smart girl, Elena. Smart enough to know which side your bread is buttered on. We pay you well, don't we? Help you take care of your mother? The mention of my mother felt like a slap, a reminder, a warning. Yes, sir. Good. I'd hate for anything to jeopardize that. He patted my shoulder as he walked past me, leaving the office. Finish up in here, would you? And, Elena, let's keep private things private. After he left, I stood there shaking, the vacuum cleaner humming, forgotten beside me. Richard Morgan had just shown me his real face, and I finally understood. I wasn't just witnessing a lie anymore. I was being forced to help maintain it.
The threat hung over me like a storm cloud. For 3 days after that conversation in Richard's office, I moved through the house like a ghost, hyper-aware of every word I spoke, every glance I gave. Richard watched me too. I'd feel his eyes on me during breakfast, catch him observing me when I brought him coffee in his study. The unspoken message was clear: stay quiet or else. But staying quiet became harder with each passing day. Victoria was planning the charity gala with such joy, such enthusiasm. She'd spread fabric swatches across the dining room table, asking my opinion on centerpieces and color schemes. What do you think, Elena? The gold or the silver? She valued my input, treated me like a friend, and every kind word from her felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I was protecting a lie, and I hated myself for it. 2 weeks after Richard's warning, things got worse. I was preparing lunch when Victoria came into the kitchen, her face troubled. She held her jewelry box in her hands, the beautiful rosewood case Richard had given her for their 10th anniversary. Elena, have you seen my diamond earrings, the ones Richard gave me for our anniversary last year? My stomach dropped. No, ma'am, I haven't. When did you last wear them? I thought they were in my jewelry box, but they're not there. I've looked everywhere. She set the box on the counter, running her hands through her hair. They're insured, of course, but they mean something to me. Richard had them custom made. I'm sure they'll turn up, but anxiety prickled at the back of my neck. They didn't turn up. 3 days later, Victoria's Tiffany bracelet went missing. Then a week after that, an expensive watch Richard kept in his dresser disappeared. Each time, Victoria would search frantically, confused and increasingly distressed. And each time, Richard would comfort her, suggesting maybe she'd misplaced them, maybe she'd forgotten where she'd put them. And each time, I noticed the way his eyes would flick to me across the room. One evening, as I was serving dinner, Richard cleared his throat. Victoria, darling, I've been thinking about the missing jewelry. Oh, Richard, let's not talk about it again. It's making me crazy. I know, but hear me out. He set down his fork, his expression grave and concerned. These items have been disappearing over the past few weeks, and I hate to even suggest this, but we should consider all possibilities. Victoria looked at him, confused. What do you mean? My hands froze as I placed the salad bowl on the table. I'm not accusing anyone, Richard continued carefully. But we have had someone new in the house for less than a year, someone with access to every room, every drawer. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Victoria's eyes widened. Richard, you can't possibly mean... I don't want to believe it either, he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Elena seems lovely, but we don't really know her, do we? And she does send money back home. Maybe there's a financial pressure we don't know about. I stood there, frozen, the blood draining from my face.
He was setting me up, framing me for theft to get rid of me before I could expose him. "That's ridiculous," Victoria said, firmly, turning to look at me. "Elena would never. Tell him, Elena." "I would never steal from you," I managed to say, my voice shaking. "Mrs. Morgan, I swear to you." "Of course you wouldn't." But I saw it, just a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Richard had planted the seed. "I hope you're right, darling. I really do. But perhaps we should be more careful about where we leave valuables, just as a precaution." That night, I lay awake in my small room, my mind racing. Richard was methodical, calculating. He'd stolen from his own home to frame me, to make me look like a thief so that when he eventually fired me, Victoria would believe I deserved it. And if I tried to tell him about his affair, who would she believe? Her husband of 12 years? Or the housekeeper accused of stealing? I felt trapped, helpless, terrified. But then I remembered, if Richard was this desperate to hide his affair, maybe there was more to hide. The next day, while Richard was at work and Victoria was at her yoga class, I did something I'd never done before. I went into Richard's office and I searched. My hands trembled as I opened desk drawers, careful to remember exactly where everything was placed. I found client files, contracts, business cards, nothing unusual. I was about to give up when I noticed a locked drawer at the bottom of the filing cabinet. Using a hairpin, I worked at the lock. My mother had taught me this trick when I was young, and we'd locked ourselves out of our apartment. After 3 minutes of fumbling, the drawer clicked open. Inside were folders, bank statements, but not for any accounts I recognized. I pulled one out and my heart began to pound. Offshore accounts, transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars, names of clients I'd heard Richard mention, but the numbers didn't match what I'd overheard him tell Victoria about his earnings. Money was being moved, hidden, redirected. Richard Morgan wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was stealing from his clients. I heard the front door open downstairs. Victoria's voice called out, "Elena, I'm home early." Panic shot through me. I quickly photographed 3 pages with my phone, shoved the folders back, locked the drawer, and slipped out of the office. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. "In the kitchen, Mrs. Morgan," I called back, my voice somehow steady. But as I stood at the sink, pretending to wash vegetables, I realized something had shifted. Richard had made a mistake by threatening me, by framing me for theft, to make me down something else entirely. He'd made me dangerous. Because now, I wasn't just protecting myself. I was gathering evidence.
The breaking point came on a cold Friday morning, exactly 3 weeks after I'd discovered Richard's financial crimes. I'd been careful, so careful. I'd documented everything. More photos of the offshore accounts, screenshots of the message previews from the mysterious A, notes about Richard's late nights and suspicious behavior. I'd stored it all in a cloud account Richard couldn't access. I didn't know what I'd do with the evidence, but I knew I needed it. Then, Victoria's pearl necklace, a family heirloom from her grandmother, disappeared. I found her crying in her bedroom, the empty jewelry case open on her lap. "It's gone, Elena. My grandmother's necklace. It's the one thing I treasured most, and it's gone." My heart shattered watching her. This wasn't just about missing jewelry anymore. This was about destroying a woman's peace, her trust, her sense of safety in her own home. And I knew exactly who had taken it. That evening, Richard came home early. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard his footsteps, harder than usual, purposeful. He walked straight to me, his face a mask of cold fury. "Elena, we need to talk. Now." Victoria appeared in the doorway behind him, her eyes red from crying. Richard held up a small key. "Do you know what this is?" I didn't answer. "It's the key to your room. Victoria insisted I check, given everything that's been disappearing." He pulled something from his pocket, Victoria's pearl necklace, the one that had gone missing just hours ago. We found this hidden in your dresser drawer, under your clothes. The room tilted. That's not... I didn't... How could you? Victoria whispered, her voice breaking. I trusted you. I welcomed you into our home. Mrs. Morgan, I swear to you, I didn't steal that necklace. Someone put it there. Enough, Richard said sharply. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is clear. You've been stealing from us for months. Pack your things. I want you out of this house within the hour. This was it. The moment he'd been building toward. Frame me, fire me, silence me. Something inside me snapped. No, I said quietly. Richard's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? I looked him directly in the eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't look away. Pack your things, you said. I took a breath, feeling months of fear and anger crystallize into clarity. Actually, you should pack yours. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stepped forward, her voice shaking. What are you talking about? Elena, this isn't... Mrs. Morgan. I turned to her, my voice steady now. I didn't steal from you. Your husband did. He planted that necklace in my room this afternoon while you were visiting your mother. I saw him go into my room from the garden window. That's absurd, Richard snapped. Victoria, she's lying to save herself. He's been having an affair, I continued, the words tumbling out now, unstoppable, for at least 10 months, with someone whose contact name in his secret phone is just A, the black phone he keeps hidden in the living room couch. What secret phone? There is no secret phone, Richard said, but his voice had changed, become defensive. This is desperate. You're making up stories. The phone is in the living room right now, between the couch cushions where he always hides it. Check it yourself, Mrs. Morgan. The passcode is probably your wedding anniversary. That's how arrogant he is. Victoria looked between us, her world crumbling in real time. Then she walked to the living room. We followed, Richard protesting the entire way. Victoria found the phone exactly where I said it would be. Her hands shook as she entered their anniversary date, 10/15/2012. The phone unlocked. I watched her face as she scrolled through the messages. Each swipe down brought new pain, messages about hotel rooms, about stolen moments, about promises of a future together. Her face went from pale to flushed to completely white. Who is A? She whispered. Victoria, I can explain. Richard reached for her, but she jerked away. Who is she? Amanda, I said quietly, his secretary, and according to his messages from 2 weeks ago, she's pregnant. Victoria made a sound like she'd been punched in the stomach. The phone slipped from her hands onto the couch. Richard's mask finally cracked. You had no right to spy on me, you little... There's more. I interrupted. I pulled out my own phone, opening the photos I had taken. He's not just cheating on you, Mrs. Morgan. He's been embezzling money from his clients, hiding it in offshore accounts. I have photos of the bank statements, the transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen and hidden. I handed Victoria my phone. She stared at the evidence, at the proof of her husband's crimes, her betrayal written in numbers and bank account codes. Get out, she said, her voice barely audible. Victoria, please. Richard stepped forward. Get out, she screamed, and I'd never heard Victoria scream before. Get out of this house right now or I'm calling the police. Actually, I'm calling them anyway, for the embezzlement. And I'm calling my lawyer. Richard looked at me, and the hatred in his eyes was pure and burning. But I didn't care anymore. I'd told the truth. Finally. The next hour was chaos. Richard tried everything. Pleading, threatening, bargaining. He claimed the affair meant nothing, that Amanda was lying about the pregnancy, that the offshore accounts were legitimate business structures I was too ignorant to understand. But with each word, he sank deeper into the hole he dug himself. Victoria sat on the couch, rigid and silent, clutching my phone with the evidence like it was a lifeline. She'd transformed before my eyes. The warm, trusting woman I'd known had been replaced by someone harder, colder, more focused. "I said get out, Richard." Her voice was ice. "Take whatever you can carry in one suitcase. Everything else stays. This is my house. My father's money bought it, remember? You have 30 minutes. I'll never forget the look on Richard's face as he climbed those stairs, a mixture of rage, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. The untouchable Richard Morgan, brought down by the housekeeper he'd tried to destroy. After he left, Victoria and I sat in the kitchen. She'd made tea with shaking hands, and we drank it in silence for a long moment. "How long have you known?" "About the affair, almost 9 months. About the financial crimes, 3 weeks. She closed her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was afraid," I admitted. "He threatened me. Threatened my job, my ability to help my mother, and then he started framing me for the thefts to discredit me before I could say anything. I almost stayed silent forever." "But you didn't," Victoria looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "You could have just left quietly, Elena. Why did you risk everything to tell me?" "Because you were kind to me," I said simply. "Because you treated me like a person, not just the help. And because you deserved to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt." Victoria reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being braver than I was." The legal aftermath was swift and brutal. Victoria's lawyer was a shark in a suit who took one look at my evidence and smiled like Christmas had come early. The offshore accounts, the client fund transfers, and the documented pattern of embezzlement, it was enough to bury Richard Morgan. Within 2 weeks, Richard was arrested at his office. The SEC opened an investigation. His clients filed a class action lawsuit. The affair with Amanda became public when she tried to sell her story to a tabloid, confirming everything, including the pregnancy, which turned out to be a lie she'd used to pressure Richard into leaving Victoria. Richard Morgan lost everything. His reputation, his career, his freedom. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. Victoria divorced him, and in the settlement, she got the house, most of their assets, and a restraining order. As for me, Victoria insisted I stay on, even offering me a raise. But I knew it was time to move on. Too much had happened in that house. Every room held memories of secrets and lies. "I understand," Victoria said when I told her. "But please, let me help you, Elena. You saved my life, Elena. Let me do something for you." She wrote me a reference letter that could have opened doors at Buckingham Palace. She also gave me a severance package that was enough to pay off my mother's medical bills entirely and help me start fresh. 6 months later, I enrolled in community college to study accounting. Ironic, isn't it? The housekeeper who exposed financial fraud decided to become an accountant. But I'd learned something important. Knowledge is power, and I never wanted to feel powerless again. I still keep in touch with Victoria. She's rebuilt her life, started her own charity foundation, even cut her hair short in what she called her liberation haircut. She's stronger now, harder but also more authentically herself. You gave me the truth when everyone else in my life was giving me comfortable lies. That's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Looking back now, standing in Richard's kitchen that day and saying, "Actually, you should pack yours," was the scariest and most liberating moment of my life. I was just a housekeeper, invisible to most people, expected to clean up messes and stay silent. But I learned that truth has power, no matter who speaks it. Your voice matters, whether you're the CEO or the person scrubbing the floors. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak up, even when you're terrified of the consequences. Because silence protects the guilty, But truth? Truth sets everyone free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you believe that truth matters more than comfort and that standing up for what's right is always worth it, please hit that like button. It tells me these stories matter to you. Subscribe to this channel if you want more real stories about courage, justice, and people who refuse to stay silent. I share new stories every week, and your support means I can keep bringing these important tales to light. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's struggling with whether to speak up about something they know is wrong. Maybe someone who feels powerless in their situation. Let them know that their voice matters. Drop a comment below telling me, have you ever had to choose between staying silent and speaking a difficult truth? What did you do? I read every single comment and I'd love to hear your stories too. Remember, you are not invisible. Your truth has power, and sometimes the most ordinary person can change everything just by refusing to look away. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and never underestimate the power of standing up for what's right. This is Elena, and thank you for being here with me today.